Hi guys, so my name is Lauren Wolford,
And my name's Lauren Wingler.
and this is our favorite personality thing. Alright, so for our project, we decided to talk about Freud's psychosexual stages. So, Freud claims that the major stages of personality development occur in the early years of a child's life, heavily based on interactions between the parent and the child. So, during the child's early years, the id impulses are at their highest domains. Children are constantly trying to fulfill those impulses by acting out and behaving poorly for their parents. This then incites anger in the parents, in which many parents then show their true colors and behaviors to the child. During this time, children also experience strong sexual conflicts, as Freud did as a child. That's why he came up with this whole psychosexual stage idea. During each stage of the psychosexual development, conflicts revolve around different areas of the body. So, these are called erogenous zones, thus naming each stage after a part of the body. So, in each stage, the conflict needs to be resolved by the child in order for them to move on to the next stage.
So the first stage that we're going to talk about is called the oral phase. The oral phase begins from the age of birth until 1 year. During this stage, there are two different types of behaviors that are shown by children. The first type of behavior is called oral incorporative behavior. This is the infant's gratification when sucking and swallowing. As you can see on the image presented on the presentation, there's a child biting on a toy. As many adults and kids know, infants like to always be putting things in their mouths and holding on to things. This is driven by their need to develop a relationship with their mother in which they are sucking and getting their food. The other type of behavior is called oral aggressive. This behavior is biting and spitting, obviously a negative behavior that a lot of parents have to deal with. Freud says that people develop an oral fixation in their adulthood because their oral needs in early childhood have not been met. This causes them to need a constant oral stimulation. Some examples of oral fixations are alcohol abuse, smoking cigarettes or vaping, and nail biting. You can tell that these are oral fixations because of the constant movement of hand to mouth. Alcohol abuse is one that's lesser known as an oral fixation because people don't think of it as a hand to mouth, they more think of it as the alcohol being ingested.
Alright, so next we have the anal stage. So this stage occurs from the age of 1 until the age of 3. So Freud claims that defecating, otherwise known as pooping, causes erotic pleasure in children. Anyways, once toilet training begins and children are forced to not be able to go whenever they want, wherever they want, this can cause a lot of problems for not only the parent but the child as well. So, first thing kids might do, they might refuse to use the restroom, which in turn causes this erotic pleasure in which Freud talks about, yet onsets a panic in the parents. Children are unable to use the bathroom. It can mean possible health issues, which causes the parents to give their child more attention to make sure they're okay. This stage is the beginning of when children may start to learn how to manipulate their parents. It also may cause an anal retentive personality style when older, resulting in adults who are rigid, compulsively neat, obstinate, or overly conscious. Similarly, children may also decide to go to the bathroom on purpose to incite anger in their parents. So instead of going to the bathroom like they're supposed to during toilet training, they're going in their diapers, on the floor, or wherever they may choose to go. So they might be at the point in toilet training where they know it's wrong to not use the toilet properly, yet they do it anyways just to defy their parents. This may cause an anal aggressive personality style when older and cause adults who've gone through this as a child to be cruel, destructive, or throw temper tantrums as adults.
This next stage of development is called the phallic stage. The phallic stage occurs from the age of 4 to the age of 5. This stage is very well known for being overly sexualized by Freud. The first thing I'm going to talk about is called the Oedipus complex. The Oedipus complex is in relation to young boys. It basically says that the young boy is desiring to replace his father. He says that the child is in love with his mother and doesn't want the father to get in the way of their relationship. This causes the child to be hostile, as you can see in this photo. He's hugging his mother, kicking the father, getting in between them. He can also cause a child to cause issues in parental relationships by not letting the father wake him up, not going to bed without being with the mother, not letting their father be in the relationship and always trying to get in between the parents. During this period of time, Freud also talks about castration anxiety. This is something that occurs in these young boys in which they're afraid that their genitals are going to be removed. The next thing is the Electra complex. The Electra complex is the same thing as the Oedipus complex, but it's in relation to young girls. So Freud says that just as young boys, young girls start as having an obsession with their mother because that's where their food source comes from. They have a deeper connection with their mother. But as the young girls age, they get closer to their father. And Freud said this was because their father has a penis or his genitals. Similar to the castration anxiety, the girls develop penis envy, in which they believe that they once had a penis and it was cut off. They then blame their mother for their inferiority of their genitals and believe that they had lost the penis that they once had because of their mother. This can cause them to similarly be rude to their mothers and dismissive and only want to go near their fathers. This phallic stage of personality is when children are trying to attract members of the opposite sex. They struggle to develop healthy relationships between the members of the opposite sex because of their different sexual desires that they're having. Freud says that within this stage, males are broody and aggressive and try to assert their dominance, while females exaggerate their femininity and are extremely charming. An example of this stage is when a little boy tells a little girl she's ugly. The little girl comes home and she tells her parents that this young boy told her that. Her parents will then look at her, laugh, and say that he was just flirting with you. This is how this stage is carried out within these children. If children do not properly develop through this stage, in their adult lives, they will struggle to form real, meaningful relationships with members of the opposite sex.
All right, next stage is the latency stage. So not a whole lot's going on during this stage. It occurs starting at the age of 5 and up until a child hits puberty. So this is when Freud claims that parents may get a break from unruly or wrong behavior that they may have seen in their child when the child was a bit younger. So at this point in a child's life, Freud claims that the 3 major personality structures, the id, the ego, and the superego, have been formed. So the so-called sex instinct that kids have is at a halt during this time, and it allows children to form friendships and relationships with people without poor behavior getting in the way. So people at this point in a child's life are able to observe a halt and a retrogression in sexuality development at this point. So at this time, children are able to form friendships with kids of the same sex, join school activities, participate in sports, and enjoy hobbies. They're able to do this successfully at this stage.
The final stage of psychosexual development is the genital stage. The stage lasts from adolescence into adulthood and until death. During this stage, young men and women seek sexual satisfaction through romantic relationship. This stage is when young adults will begin to experiment with their sexuality before finding a relationship and settling down. This phase is characterized by pleasure through partners rather than self-pleasure, which occurs during the phallic stage. While in this phase, young adults are able to suppress their sexual urges because they now have a fully formed superego, which aids them in abiding by social norms instead of solely acting on their bodily urges. Conflicts during this period do not result in detrimental consequences like they do in the earlier stages of development. This is because this is a more permanent stage that's based off of the development of all the previous psychosexual stages.
All right. So that is all for this project. Thanks for watching. You have anything to say?
No. Thanks for watching.
Awesome.